But yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about comic books that we're looking forward to reading. What's on the top of your pile, whether it's new or old or something else. Let's jump right into things with Danny.
Well, Mike, I was between two things, but then I read the notes, and I was like, "Well, Mike's got me covered." So on the top of my pile, and quick shout out to Nightwing 105. That's the book that's going to be all done from Dick Grayson's point of view. Make sure to go check that out. It's a really interesting experiment in comics. But I'll be reading The Hulk #1. We're getting a new Hulk series after the last Hulk series that just ended. So this one's going to be written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, who's also writing Action Comics. So I'm super, super invested in seeing what else they could do with another really strong buff character. Wait,
what?
So Philip Kennedy Johnson, just the past year, he took Superman to Warworld and pretty much made him Conan the Barbarian.
Okay.
And it is some of the best Superman that's not Superman that you've ever read.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think he's got I feel like he's got a type.
Are we going back to Planet Hulk with this? Like, what?
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you.
Are we going back to Planet Hulk?
No, we're not.
Because I did read that comic book, and I don't know why.
Okay.
A side note, I love Planet Hulk. I will hear nothing else about that book. So, but this one has art by Nick Klein, who just finished a run on Thor, and colors by Matthew Wilson. This one has The Age of Monsters has begun as an enraged Hulk tries to take control of Bruce Banner's body permanently, and Mysterious Immortal turns every monster in the Marvel Universe against Banner in an attempt to free their creator, the primordial mother of horrors. I think we're going horror kaiju with this thing.
Okay.
And I'm here for it.
How does the kaiju sneak up on somebody?
Okay.
No one answered this question when I talked about Godzilla the movie, the one that had Aaron Taylor Johnson in it. At some point, all of these guys drop out of the sky. And it's the coolest scene ever. And they're like on the ground, like, where's Godzilla? And Godzilla sneaks up on them. I don't understand it. There's no such thing as a horror kaiju movie because that would imply that kaiju can sneak up on you. And that's just not possible, Danny.
Because they're too big.
Possible.
Is it because they're too
loud? Come on.
Well, they can be very, very sneaky.
Just their breathing can shake mountains.
Yeah.
I have to wonder if this Hulk book, is going to... Because, like, the whole Mother of Monsters thing, that's from Greek mythology. Like, are we going to go back to the Greek mythology origin story with this, or are we just lifting the template? That's what I want to know. I'm curious.
Is Incredible Hercules coming back? That's all I want to know. Just wondering.
I like I love all the pitches. Keep them coming. Let's write our own Hulk. Marvel, if you're listening, we between everyone here, we can all write a Hulk book.
Right.
And it'll be fun. We can't draw it.
I have read 3 Hulk stories. I can now write the Hulk. I read Hulk Gray. That's all I need.
Yes.
I've read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I can write the Hulk.
Okay, I did actually read that, though. I did actually read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and that book is not the way the media would have it portrayed.
It's not the way the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie portrays.
You're telling me the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is not a 1-to-1 mapping of that book?
No, because you're not actually like seeing. You're reading the story from like a narrator who's like a neighbor guy, and is just like, that doctor, he sure is weird. And then like after the fact, you find out what happens, and I was like, Robert Louis Stevenson, I expect better from you, sir. You know, you could tell why they made the changes that they did in later iterations.
Sure. He wanted to do Secret Window, but instead he did Jekyll and Hyde. So
yeah. So Danny, you're excited for this Hulk book. I saw Philip Kennedy Johnson's name was attached, and I pre-ordered the first issue on Stupid Comixology.
Is that a different website?
Deep breath.
Yeah.
You think this has legs? That's what I'm wondering.
Oh, it's got big green legs, Mike. Big green legs.
Danny.
I regret asking the question.
No, you don't. That was great. That was delightful.
Oh boy. Well, Danny, you've convinced me regardless. If you think he did a good job on Action Comics, I'll have to compare notes with Paul, but I'll take your word for it. Anyways, Kevvo, what about you? What's on the top of your pile?
So I think I'm taking quite a tonal shift. I've got a stack of books that are waiting for me, and atop of my pile is a book called Left Turns by Joshua Ross. I got this book on Kickstarter. Gosh, I guess it was earlier this year. So it's a 2023 book. It's a comic book artist who is newly single and evaluating what he's willing to sacrifice to pursue his dreams. I feel like it hits a little bit close to home, except that I'm not newly single. I'm just still single. And if you can't tell, I really like personal stories. So, yeah, so that's what I'm looking forward to. I don't think that there will be any Hulk smash in this, but I can certainly let you know.
You never know. You never know.
You do never know.
It's true. It's true.
No,
because the Hulk can sneak. Yeah, the Hulk can sneak up on anyone too.
Oh my! All right, don't.
Better than any kaiju.
You're not gonna like me when I'm angry. All right. Sorry. Well, Kevvo, that sounds great. I was looking at the art on Kickstarter. It looks really cool. I do like in this Kickstarter the way that they're showing like previews, is they're like flipping pages and stuff. That's a cool GIF. I hope somebody has a template for that, because that would be really cool for other folks who maybe have a Kickstarter going like yourself. But
absolutely,
yeah.
Well, I'm in touch. Well, I follow him on Instagram, so I can certainly dig in and see what he can help me with for the future.
That would be cool. Well, I mean, you have to let us know what you think of this book. Next time we have you on, hopefully it'll be within a sooner date than what we had before. But
absolutely.
I guess, Kara, what about you? What's on the top of your pile?
I guess, Kara, what about you?
I guess,
Thanks,
Kara.
Mike. Yes. Well, I'm so glad you asked, Mike, because I have a book that's top of my pile, and I also have a request. I'm sending up the bat signal or the spider signal to get some ideas. Let me start with my top of my pile. I believe this has been discussed on the show before, but Kate Scotchless is reading Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow and posting art in our IRCB group chat. And I had not heard of this book. I think, Danny, you were talking about this book at one point, and it's just, I have been like totally ignoring superhero comics for a while. Like, aside from reading whatever X trash Mike tells me to read, I'm not really reading superhero comics right now, just because sometimes you need a break. Sometimes you need to read like a million comic books about ducks that are really people that are ducks. But I want to read this book because, first of all, my name is Kara, so I feel somewhat obligated to read some Supergirl books sometimes because we share a name. Gotta support the other Karas.
Why did I never put that together?
Danny!
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Danny, we're gonna have to have a talk about your performance here on IRCB after the show today. Oh my gosh!
I'm telling you, it's all this garbage comics. They just rot my brain.
Oh my god! It was such a delight as a teenager to realize that there was a superhero that shared a name with me who was also blonde and blue-eyed. And what a shocker! A superhero comic character who's white and blonde and blue-eyed. But here we are. So.
You don't see many of those. No.
Don't see many of those.
No, you don't see many of those.
All right, so it's been a hot minute since I've read a comic that is of the superhero genre, but the art does look fantastic. The colors look really rich and saturated, and almost like I almost just said what Fiona Apple is doing on Saga, what Fiona Staples is doing on Saga. You know,
very
total richness from both artists. But I really feel obligated to read it because I started shit-talking Comet the Talking Horse in the group chat. And for those listeners who are not familiar, Comet is Supergirl's horse because, like all good comic books or characters created for a female audience by men who think they know what women want, sometimes they're right, and the answer is horses. That is what we want. The true horse girl will always choose the horse. Okay. So once upon a time, Supergirl had a horse that was like her super friend, her super buddy, but the horse could like think. You could see the little like thinking speech bubble. And turns out that Comet the super horse was really a centaur who wanted to become a man, but in ancient Greece, the sorceress Circe gave him the wrong potion, so he was turned into a full horse, but he's immortal and sentient. and also kind of in love with Supergirl, who is a
Okay.
teenager. Although, as Paul pointed out, technically she's older than Superman because she was cryogenically frozen on the way from Krypton to Earth. So,
okay.
ew, first of all. Second of all, God damn it, comic books. But anyway, so Comet is in this book. No word on if Comet is also a sentient centaur turned horse who's also immortal, but I guess I'll have to find out for myself. And then my bat signal / spider signal to the world is, since I just saw this Spider-Verse film and realized that I also tend to not read Spider-Man comics. My question is, what Spider-Man comics should I read? I'm taking requests. I will try new things. I promise. Maybe not the Ben Reilly stuff, but I'll read other spiders.
Yeah. Anything but Ben Reilly. I gotcha. Well, please send us an email, ircbpodcast@gmail.com, if you've got any Captain America recommendations. I mean, right away, Winter Soldier comes to mind. I don't know why I didn't think of that earlier, but you got to read that one, Kara.
Okay.
And as far as Spider-Man stuff is concerned, send us an email, probably some Miles Morales stuff if you have any good recommendations. I'm thinking that the Saladin Ahmed run is pretty good, but maybe we'll see what the listeners have to say. Email us at ircbpodcast@gmail.com,
Yes. Yes, please.
I guess let me talk about a book that's on the top of my pile, and then we might have to take a quick break. We have some slight technical difficulties, but we'll get through this bit, and then we'll see what happens. But shout outs to Matt, who's hanging out with us on the on Discord. I guess not on Discord, on Twitch and stuff today. He had a pick that is Wild's End #1, which is the new Dan Abnett book, which is continuing the Wild's End series, which I thought was just done forever. So that's super exciting. So Matt, let us know what you think of that. But for me this week, I pulled from Danny's pick because I figured there's nothing else that's coming out outside of like Time Before Time that I really want to read, and that is Ultimate Invasion #1. This is Jonathan Hickman. On writing, pencils by Brian Hitch, inks by Andrew Curry, colors by Alex Sinclair, letters by Joe Caramagna. I mean, I'm a sucker for all this stupid shit. Like, quite honestly, Ultimate Universe was like the thing that I was like, I'm going to read every single Ultimates book. And then I did until Ultimatum, and I said, I'm never reading Ultimates ever again. And that's how it went. So, I really did love all the stuff that Mark Millar did, Hickman did, Warren Ellis, despite all of these people's potential problems, even the Robert Kirkman stuff, even the wacky, wild X-Men stuff that he did. I really loved all of it. I read as much of it as I possibly could. And to see that Hickman and Brian Hitch are coming back to do some Ultimate stuff, or whatever this Ultimates invasion is, he's going to bring back super evil Reed Richards, which I always find to be a fun concept. Everybody's got a helmet in the Hickman universe, and guess what? If you look at this cover, Brian Hitch drew a helmet on at least Reed Richards and probably a bunch of other people. So I'm obsessed with this in terms of trying it out. It's $9 for the first issue, so I might as well just stab myself in the eye to read this comic book. But regardless, like, this is going to get me because I was 19 when I read this, and I'm feeling super nostalgic. And Hickman, he's a pretty good writer. I've liked what he's done in the past, so we're going to see if he can, knock another one out of the park. So I'm excited. Danny, what about you? I know this was on your list too.
Yeah. So I will say, unlike Mike, by the time I started reading comics and got to that, and I had some extra time to actually get to the Ultimate stuff, Hickman was about to destroy it, and I'm like, well, I mean, maybe I don't need to anymore, right? Because we're leaving all these Secret Wars. So I'm excited for this because I know the few characters that remain from the Ultimate Universe that are now folded into regular continuity. They're very cool. I know there's a lot of really cool creators. I know they took it to an extreme at some point. I've heard horror stories of some of those Ultimate books, but I've also heard like people like Mike that they really just enjoyed a lot of that era. So I'm very excited for that. I think Brian Hitch on superheroes is where he truly shines, like in a big book, bombastic book like this.
Totally.
And Jonathan Hickman, I love when he comes in for a concept and just kind of sets it up and leaves it there for everyone else to kind of play with, see Hoxpox and all the stuff that's happening in Krakoa as an example. So why not? I'll also spend $9 on it, but
unbelievable price for a comic book.
How
It's
many
probably like
pages?
53?
53 pages. Marvel
Huh.
has a shotgun to all of our backs, and they're saying, "This
Wow.
is it. This is what's happening." It's
my
not
God.
fun.
Let me go check out the variants because
I don't know.
I may end up
Danny,
spending
no.
more than
Danny, no,
$8.
Danny, no,
Wait,
please.
I have a comment about Jonathan Hickman because I actually could not tell you what his style is as a writer, but his name is everywhere. So to me, he's like the workhorse of superhero comic books. Like if Hickman's on a book, it will be fine, but I won't remember it necessarily.
I mean, I think he if you want a peak definition of what Hickman's style is, I would read his Secret Warriors run that he ever did. His whole thing is gears within gears within gears, which is literally the title of the last arc of it. I think it's called Gears Within Gears because his whole thing is like there is a small story that's happening that is inside of a bigger story that's happening that is inside of a bigger arc that's happening.
Yeah.
And now every writer should be doing this, but Hickman likes to set up like these multi-chain things where like by the time you get to the end of the story, you see that the reason why you got there is because multiple things happened in succession in a way that is really unique. And the way that I'm describing this, it sounds like storytelling in general. So maybe he's not unique at all.
Well, I don't know, because superhero comics tend to just kind of either peter off or go and fade into the abyss, and I don't know, like sometimes they don't have things resolved. So if you're saying that Hickman resolves things in smaller arcs, that sounds satisfying. That tracks with my impression of him as like a workhorse writer. And I don't mean workhorse to be like derogatory. I mean like you're a perfectly functional writer who, like, as you said, like this is writing 101. Congratulations, you closed your story. You came to a conclusion. That's great. I like for superhero comics. That's incredible.
I like to think of Hickman as like an engineer. He loves building these complex machines and just kind of leaving them out there to run.
Yeah.
The problem is that sometimes he's not there for the maintenance, and then that's when the wheels can kind of come off. Because not everybody that follows his stuff can take his ideas. Now, Mark Waid, I would call him a workhorse, where he just kind of comes in and does all these titles and just like, yeah, whatever. I can write 10 DC books. It doesn't matter. I know all this stuff is in my head. So that's really interesting about how different their styles are. But I mean, they're both two of the people that these companies love to bring them back and have them just play around in their sandbox.
I really love, Danny, that you just described the deist philosophy of God made the world and then just left it alone to describe Jonathan Hickman in the Marvel universe.
He did write a book called God is Dead. So like
if anyone proving the point.
If anyone thinks highly of Hickman, it's definitely Jonathan Hickman. So
cool. Well, Danny, we'll have to converse about this after this book comes out. We'll see what happens because I'm pretty sure I'm actually going to put this on the top of my pile and read it as soon as it comes out because I'm really curious to know if this is even going to vibe with me at all. Right? Like it's been so long since I really read any Ultimate books. The pitch for this made it seem like, hey, we're bringing the Ultimates back the way that they were, which like shouldn't make me excited because that's the reason why comics are the way that they are in the big two is because they keep saying, guess what, guys, we're bringing it back to the way that it was. And that's actually not good.
But Mike, now you're the target demographic. You're the target demographic. You are the correct age for being marketed to. I went into a taco shop this weekend and this taco shop was like my personal paradise because it was all this like 90s nerd toys everywhere and they were playing Rocket Power on the TV and I was like, okay, this is for me. I have expendable income and like you understand that I'm at the height of my purchasing powers.
Yeah.
This is why this exists. I understand. That's you. And I was thinking like, it's at the top of your pile. It's at the top of your pile because it's $9. You want to see if your investment is worth it.
That is exactly true. On the bright side, it is a 4-issue miniseries, and the subsequent issues are only $6 each at probably 32 pages because Marvel can get away with anything that they want. And we let them every month. But yeah, we'll see. If anything, I'll probably just wait for this to hit Marvel Unlimited and just read it. Maybe that's what they're hoping people do. So yeah, but I guess we're gonna do a little timeout here. I guess in the show, Kevvo, We're back. You're back. I know you dropped off there for a second. Is everything all right?
I think so. I'm
Okay.
fine.
Okay, good. Well, I guess then let's just jump right into things. So right now you have a Kickstarter running for a continuation of the series that we talked about way back in 2021, Z-Class: The Beginnings. You have this new book called Z-Class Trix. Could
Yes.
you tell the folks at home a little bit about where you're at with this book?
Yeah, well, let me try. I feel like I talk about this book all the time, and I still don't have a succinct story.
Sure.
So, Z-Class is a YA superhero graphic novel series. It's a so I grew up loving the X-Men, and that's what sort of informed the idea of having these kids who are born with these super abilities. Um, and Trix is just the continuation of the first story. The first book, The Beginning, which came out last year, Z-Class: The Beginning, was sort of the introduction to all of the characters and sort of showed how the team came together. And then Trix picks up where that left off. We're introducing some new characters. There were some cliffhangers that the first book ended off on. And we've got some longer, what I'm super excited about, what's keeping me going with this is there are some longer stories that I'm really excited to tell, and we're starting to dig into that. The first book, I spent a lot of energy in just trying to introduce characters, and it was hard to tell much story at the same time. And now with this book, we're able to start actually digging into the story, and that's what's exciting to me about it.
Yeah, and it's a cool looking book. I will say, read the first volume. There's a the wonderful shout out to the podcast in there that I really appreciate you doing. There's a chapter where one of the characters is wearing an IRCB shirt, which is really, really cool for me to share around with the group that I was sending around earlier this week.
Absolutely.
But
Yes.
yeah, no, the comic's really fun though. It's about like a bunch of, a ragtag group of kids who come together to try to be superheroes, and there's maybe a couple of twists and turns in there.
Mhm.
As we see this story go on, I mean, like, I feel like in the first volume, everyone was able to kind of establish their powers and stuff, and they kind of came together as a team, and then the book ended. What kind of hijinks could we expect these kids to get up to in this next volume?
So in the next volume, so it actually picks up only a couple of weeks after the first one. At this rate, I don't know how long it's going to take me to tell this story. If it takes, like, every book only goes forward about 2 weeks.
Sure.
So this book we're picking up shortly after the first one ended. Kids are starting to go missing around town, even as other kids are starting to show up with new abilities. And so our team is trying to figure out if those things are related. We have new characters that are going to be joining the scene, and we'll just have to stick around to figure out whether or not they're working with our team or against our team, and even within our team. So one of the things that I really loved about X-Men, that I still love about X-Men, is not the superhero part, but the personal part, the relationships, the drama, things like that. And that's something that I'm really excited to dig into with these books. One of the things that was really important to me about putting Z-Class together was the idea of representation. I think that is kind of reflected in some of the books that I have been reading, that I chose to read and talk about today. It's really important to me that readers are able to see perspectives that are not necessarily their own, and that's something that I'm trying to do in these books, especially for a YA audience. And that's something that it's the personal stuff, the relationship stuff, the characters themselves that we're really going to start digging into more in the new book and the books that are to come. So yes, there is a mystery that's happening in town, and kids are going missing, and kids are showing up with abilities and all of this stuff. But within the team, the kids themselves are experiencing some changes of their own, and I'm really excited to tell these stories.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, I'm excited to read the next volume of this, if only because, like, I was a big fan of the first one, and it's really fun to read a book that is exciting for me as an adult to read, that I definitely could hand to, like, a 9-year-old kid, and they probably could have a good time reading it as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, what I really appreciated about the first volume is, like, you're not scared to broach some what I think are slightly tougher subjects,
Yeah.
without. Which is interesting because I feel like some writers may shy away from that because the little kids or younger readers aren't necessarily ready. But I feel like the way you approach a lot of the topics in the first volume, it didn't feel blunted, but it also didn't feel like it was going to like hurt anyone's mind, you know, at the
Yeah.
same time.
So I appreciate you saying that. It's funny that you say that, because when I was promoting the first book, I was really trying to push it as a diverse, potentially queer cast of characters. And then the feedback that I got from one of my friends after reading it, he was like, this book just wasn't as gay as I was expecting it to be. And I think a friend of mine pointed out, I think you see in it what you're looking for in it. And so what I told him is that it's actually a very queer book, but you don't necessarily know it when the first one is done. You have to read a little bit more and find out where these characters are and who they are and things like this to really realize where they were when the whole thing started. And I feel like I'm speaking really cryptically right now, but I think part of the intention behind that too is I want, so as a queer person myself, being queer is not the biggest thing about me or the only thing about me. There's so much more to me. And that's what I want for these characters too. I want readers to love these characters for the multifacetedness of them. And then if they find out that they happen to also be queer, at this point, hopefully people are already loving these characters and that's not really going to be an issue. Meanwhile, for other kids who might be queer, and I'm using queer as an example, there's diversity in age and body size, body types, races, things like this. But for kids who are queer, I think that they might be reading this book and already recognizing things in these characters that maybe reflect some of their own experiences. And I like the challenge of that, the complexity of that, the subterfuge of that. That's what I'm trying to do with these books. So we were talking earlier about how genderqueer is one of those books that's so banned everywhere. I want Z-Class to be one of those books that is banned everywhere. So that's something that I'm rooting for. I don't know what it'll take, but that's my aim.
That's a lofty goal, but I applaud it. That's
Thanks.
Please ban my book, you know.
Well, I feel like all the best books are getting banned, so right. I would be in great company.
It's so funny to think like, oh man, somebody out there is curating a really solid list of books that you should read.
Yes, absolutely. So,
Kevvo, I do want to mention, I really like your character designs, like the outfits. Just like you mentioned, there's a big wide cast of different, body types and just like all the characters look very unique.
Thank you.
I think that's something that for young readers, one of the, all these little identifiers are very important for them to latch on to a different character, right? There's a reason why everyone has a different turtle that they love, is because they kind of identify with their favorite color or whatever the case may be.
Yes.
And this is very similar in your own style. I love the outfit with the collar. That's just like immediately something that jumped out at me as I'm kind of going through the Kickstarter page. So I hope that anybody that picks this book up and reads it can find their own little favorite character. Because I think that's part of the fun in comic books.
Absolutely. And it's funny too, because kids, so one of the things that this having this book has afforded me is the opportunity to go in and speak to groups of kids. And one of the questions that kids will come to me at, so first, it was super exciting to find out that kids in these classes that I'm talking to have read my book, which is just such a high. So cool. And to hear their ideas about the characters and wanting to know what's going to happen in the next book. Is so-and-so going to have powers, or, things like this, which I don't give any spoilers at these things. But one of the questions that kids will very often throw at me is, who's your favorite character out of this? And sort of to your point, it changes. When I first started writing the first book, it was all about Justin. And then as I was meeting the characters, Eleanor is actually based on a friend of mine. And so Eleanor sort of became a favorite of mine. But then I wrote that first chapter about Anjali, and it really became her story for me. And so it's just been a really evolving process. My favorite character depends on the day of the week. The character you're referencing is Heather, and that is a character that I actually created when I was in high school. And she has sort of been pulled forward and de-aged for the purposes of this book. And yeah, you're exactly right. My hope is that people will just find a character that resonates with them. And I'm really excited actually to introduce the new characters that are coming too, because I think it just will continue to expand the diversity of the representation within the book. But just, the complexity of the stories, all of that stuff.
Kevvo, I want to build on what you were just talking about and kind of hark back to something Mike mentioned earlier. Can you, like, now knowing that one of your characters was created when you were in high school and modified for this story, can you tell us a little bit about your creative process and what is inking?
So I have a whole slideshow that I take to schools and talk to students about, with the entire process broken down succinctly for the purposes of the books. So one of the challenges that I've discovered is wearing all the hats yourself. It is a lot of work to make a graphic novel. I have never considered myself a writer, and yet people have to remind me that technically I've published a book that I've written, so I am a writer. That's the first step. Writing is potentially the most challenging part of the process for me, and some of the most fun of the part of the process for me. When I was picking up writing Trix after 2 years, it'd been 2 years since I'd written the first book, and then I started writing Trix. It was like revisiting old friends, and it was so much fun. Like, where's our story going to go now? And it was exciting to see where the story's going to go. And I don't always know where the story's going to go. The characters, I have some long-term stories that are already in my mind, and the characters themselves sort of propel the story in their own direction as well. Following that, I do all of this work digitally, but the language for it harkens back to the old days when everything was done with traditional media. So following doing the writing, I do the pencils, which is just doing the sketches. On top of that, I do the inks, and that's doing the formal lines that will actually be used for the book itself. Following that, I do the coloring, and then the lettering, and I feel like that's the very short version of all of the steps that go into putting the book together. One of the questions that is commonly asked of me is, how long does it take to do the book? And I don't remember exactly how the math worked out, but I figured it out that it takes about 4 hours per page for me to illustrate the book. So the first book took me, the first book was 256 pages, I think. So I'll let you figure out how long it took me to do that. And I had to redraw the first 2 chapters. So I know, I know, don't get me started. I'm not redrawing anything in this book. It's going to be what it's going to be. But so, and then as far as, Heather was a character that I came up with back when I was drawing superheroes in high school. A very complicated, complex story that she had. She was the 3rd generation of superheroes with this particular ability, and I brought her up to Z class. Kept some of that. So in the first book, you find out that her mother also has abilities, but then changed a whole lot of it too. And she's a character that I'm really excited to share the story of. In the coming books. I don't know if that answered your question or very succinctly, but
no, it was great insight. I have a nerd follow up. How did you choose your color palette?
Oh my gosh! If I let's do this. I have said this. I have said this to so many people. If I had the budget, the first thing I would do is hire a colorist. I feel like I used to teach color theory, and I feel like coloring these books is the most challenging part for me, mostly because it just takes so stinking long. As far as the color palette, Heather's abilities are related to cold and ice, so it seemed obvious to me to go with blue. I really liked the idea of having each character with a distinct color that went with them. Anjali has Indian heritage, and when I was looking at traditional costumes, outfits that would have been worn in India, I was finding a lot of reds for characters like her. I'm trying to think. Eleanor somehow became green. I don't know. So eventually they each got assigned their colors, and they've sort of been pulled forward. But truly, if I found somebody who I could just hire to do all the coloring for me, I would do it in a heartbeat. I see the work that other people do in these books, that the color work that is just so amazing to me, and I'm like, oh, if only, maybe one day. But
now,
yeah.
Kevvo, I also want to ask. So it looks like in the first book, I believe you did the cover. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Now, how is it to see somebody else? Because I see that the cover is by Jan Bautista.
Yes.
In this second iteration, how does it feel to see the characters that you created interpreted by a different artist? What
Oh
is
my
that
gosh,
like?
that is my favorite. So when I did the first book, I had the fortune of finding beta readers. And so what I would do with the beta readers is give them one chapter of the book, give them 2 weeks to read it, a little worksheet to fill out with just sort of prompts for things, areas of improvement, things that were really strong and whatnot. And then we did a Zoom call together, all of us, for about a half an hour, just to sort of process through if there were things that I had questions about or whatnot. And having a Zoom chat where people who I am not related to, who I do, some of them I'd never even met before, were talking about my characters and what they were finding relationship wise in my characters and whatnot. That was just a high that I could not, oh, I wish I could bottle it. It was amazing. And now having other people draw my stuff. So on the current Kickstarter, I have game goals. Stretch goals. That game stretches. I don't know.
Stretch
The
goals.
the language
Gotcha.
is very clumsy for me right now. But one of the goals is to get fan art from people. And so at this point in time, I'm not really sure we're going to get enough fan art pieces to make that goal happen. But I have started getting some fan art, and it's so much fun to see people's interpretation of my characters. I love it. Like, because this is what I was doing. Like when I was a kid, I was drawing other people's characters. And I knew how exciting that was for me, how much fun that was for me. And so to see other people doing this, when I do the Pride booths, one of the things that I have just as a free giveaway is coloring pages. When I released the first book, I had a book release party here in West Michigan. Kate Lamphere was actually at that party. And one of the things that I had at the party were these coloring pages, the characters. And it was just so much fun. People coloring my characters and changing my characters with crayons and all the things that come along with that was such a kick. And so it was a no-brainer for me to have somebody else draw the cover for this book. And as a matter of fact, it's sort of something that I'm thinking about, like, who can I get next time? Like, I want to have maybe a different artist do every cover for a while. And I just think that's going to be so much fun. I had very few requirements to the process, like this hair color has to be this and whatnot. But otherwise, it was just so much fun to see how she interpreted it. And I want to do it again. So if you're offering, if you want to draw the characters, bring it. Like, I welcome it.
I might send some fan art, but I don't know about the whole
All right.
cover.
Well, I make no guarantees about where it might end up, so please go ahead and send it.
I want to go back to you were saying that the X-Men were an influence, which
Yes.
kind of stole the lead of one of my questions for you, which is there's a grand history of teens banding together and being in a little group from superheroes to Scooby-Doo. So what were your influences? But the next step of that is, I guess, then knowing that it's the X-Men, if you could mix and match the characters of Z-Class with the X-Men, what characters would we mix and match with? Who's going over to Xavier's Academy?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Wow, that's a question I haven't been asked before.
Are you de-aging?
Okay. So I think the no-brainer for me would be mix and matching with New Mutants, because we've got kids, like we've got characters that are already kid age. I'm not going to go into too many spoiler details, but I will say that there is a trajectory for Anjali that would make sense to move in an X-Men direction that I can already see in her future. I don't know how they would do with Xavier, because I'm not really sure that they. Yeah, I don't know that they would work well with him. But
yeah.
I don't think anybody's ready to deal with Xavier, if we're being really honest. But
fair point. Yes, but that is something that actually I see. I'm on Reddit, and I am part of these comic creating groups and whatnot, and I see people posting regularly about this desire to work with other comic creators to create sort of a universe. And in theory, I think it's amazing. I love the idea. And I also think, like, how much fun would it be for my characters to do a crossover with Marvel Mutants, things like that. I think my kids would have so much fun on Krakoa. I think it would be such a kick. There is, in the Chris Claremont tradition, there is a extensive backstory that has not been fully revealed in the books yet. But I think that it would line up really nicely with some of the challenging history of X-Men as well. We've got our own little Dark Phoenix saga going on over in Hamilton Falls. But I won't say more than that.
Well, everybody's got to get back this Kickstarter so you too can see what this potential huge blow up may be. Is what it sounds like to me.
It's true. It's so funny too, because as we're having this conversation, the Kickstarter is actually at 98%. So, like, we're gonna get there. It's no problem.
Close.
I know, so close. And I had a dream last night that I would be on this podcast and live. I would get to 100%, so we would be able to make an announcement live. It didn't happen, but that's totally fine. It's Sunday. I don't expect it.
Five people on the Twitch stream. They all could hit that top tier.
Exactly. Yes. But so
I have been refreshing the page, Kevvo, just to check.
Are you kidding?
Danny's
my phone is sitting right beside me, and like prompts are right here. So as soon as that happens, I will be interrupting this podcast to make a very important announcement.
It's a 4-hour long episode to see this through to the end.
Oh my gosh, we'll have a telethon. Who's our next deck that can come on and perform for a half an hour?
Hold on, let me call Nick really quick. We get Paul. We'll do the 9-person roundtable right now.
Oh, I was thinking Tony, Orlando, and Dawn, but that works too.
Oh, that works too. Yeah. Well, I guess let's get into some final questions so we can actually wrap this episode up. Though, Kara, I'm going to steal right from your list here. I am curious. I'm born and raised in Michigan. Now I live out in big old New Jersey. What's the comic scene like in Michigan right now? I guess you've obviously been slowly working into the circuit. How have things been? Are there any other folks you're working around with or anything like that?
Oh my gosh. So I wish that I had a better answer for you. So really long story made short, I lost my social media last fall. It was super frustrating because it happened too sorry, I just got notification that we got some support on the Kickstarter. Thank you.
I may or may not have backed the goal that I wanted. So
I mean, thank you. That's amazing. So back to your question. So I lost my social media 2 weeks before the first book dropped. And in that process, I also lost all of the contacts that I had made previously. So I'm in the process of rebuilding that right now. And it's really exciting, actually, and fun to find local artists who are creating. Unfortunately, I don't know enough yet. One of the things that we had talked about before the show started is that I have wanted to do comic conventions, and I sort of set the personal rule for myself that I wasn't going to do a convention until I had at least 2 books in hand. And so after this year, I will have 2 books in hand. So I will feel more prepared to do a comic book convention. And so much like Pride festivals, I imagine I'll probably start with the littler conventions and sort of get my feet wet and see what I'm up for. But I'm really looking forward to rubbing elbows with a lot of the creatives around here. I have a friend who actually is not currently creating, but wants to be in Detroit. And so I'm just constantly prodding him, like, as soon as you're ready to start creating, I'm ready to do a booth with you, and let's make this happen. But yeah, otherwise, I'm not going to answer your question very well, so that will hopefully cause you to want to bring me back at another time, and we can talk about the local creators in Michigan.
I'd love to do that. we could get some Michigan residents on here too, so that you guys can talk shop, I guess, or something.
That would be amazing. Yes, absolutely. Bring it.
Cool. Well, I guess Danny, Kara, any last questions here before we wrap up the show?
Ooh.
Yes.
As you know, we love our snacks here. What are your must-have snacks when you're creating or otherwise?
Oh my gosh. So before we had this podcast, I ate some cherries, but when I give you that as the answer, it sounds like I eat much healthier than I really do. That's just because that's what I happen to have in the refrigerator at the moment.
I also had cherries today because they were in my refrigerator, and I was like, I should eat some of these, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Instead
of the Skittles, right?
It seems like the responsible decision. So I don't necessarily. Oh, I do have a go-to. I was going to say that I didn't. So Skittles are not my jam. The fruity candies are not my thing. I like the chocolate candies, and I didn't have an answer until you reminded me. So at Costco, they sell these caramels, these chocolate-covered sea salted caramels that are so delicious. I was introduced to those by my best friend about 2 years ago. First time I had them, I asked how many would be inappropriate to eat the first time, like in one sitting. We decided that 3 is probably the healthy threshold for that. And so I pretty much always have those in my cupboard. And then currently, like most people, when their bananas go bad, they make banana bread. I make banana brownies. And so I've got banana brownies in my fridge right now that are pretty delicious.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice. You describing the sea salt chocolate covered caramels. I was like,
Yeah.
that, but the Trader Joe's dark chocolate peanut butter cups, those things are dangerous.
So I get those in my stocking every year from the same best friend that I mentioned earlier. Yes. So yes, and I do have 2 of those in my pantry as well. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm almost thinking I should not invite you over at any point because I don't. Yeah, I feel like to protect my sweets, we might just have to meet a neutral ground.
Bring your own snacks, please.
Yeah. It's true. It's true.
Now you got the good stash.
It's true. Exactly. You can keep your Skittles, and I'll have my chocolates over here. And yes.
Danny, last question. Otherwise, we could wrap up here, I think.
No, I'm just very excited now to get to to check this out. And yeah, this was great.
Thank you. I'm excited too. Like, people talk about how hyped they are for the new book. I'm like, I don't even know what the new book is yet. So I'm super excited too. I mean, it's written, but now we got to get it all drawn. So, and as I was mentioning before this started to, I'm really bad at stopping myself. So, I went into this Kickstarter campaign saying that it was going to be, I think I said it was going to be a 6-chapter book. And now I'm kind of like, it might be a 7-chapter book as I'm like thinking about what else I want to put into this book. So we'll see. It's going to be somewhere in that range. And we'll all be surprised.
Nice.
I'm excited for the next volume, and I'm excited to be surprised as well.
Thank you.
Kevvo, this is a blast. Where can folks find you on the internet if they want to get in touch? You said you got some new social media handles to give out.
I lost pretty much everything. So if you're looking for me on Twitter or Instagram, I'm at ZClass Comics, all one word. And then, my website, kevvo.com. Come on out there. I've got a Patreon as well, ZClass Comics, that is just getting off the ground, but I've got big hopes for that. So awesome. Come check it out.
Yeah, we'll make sure to put all that stuff in the show notes, as well as the Kickstarter link, as well as the link to the last episode that you were on, because we had a really fun conversation way back then too.
Awesome.
Good luck with the rest of the Kickstarter. Obviously, you're super duper close. I can't wait to see this thing get over the final mark. It's so
I might be 1% away now. I'm so close.
There's links on everything. Make sure you go back this if you guys are hearing this right now. But this was a pleasure. Kara, Danny, thank you guys so much. And Kevvo, thank you again for reaching out and making this whole thing happen with us. I'm so excited to help make sure that this next project happens. Plus, I'm really excited to read it myself. So
thank you.
Next week on
this
the
was
show,
a kick. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And next week on the show, I didn't write down any notes, so it's just going to be a mystery. Good luck, have fun. I didn't write it down. I'm really sorry. Actually, I could pull up a schedule right here. Next week on the show, we have a good friend Zach back from the Comics That We Love podcast. Me and Kara and him are going to talk about our comic book guilty pleasures for another time. We are just going to be doing that for the episode, which will be really, really fun. As always, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Discord, Goodreads. We got our YouTube, all that other stuff. You can support us at patreon.com/IRCB podcast. Infinity Shred is the best band in the universe. They do all of our music. Xander is rocking with you. You rocking with him? And I want to say thank you to Kara and Danny. I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote that down. Thank you to everyone on Twitch and Discord who are hanging out with us. Thank you to Kevvo again. And until next time.
Oh, I need to interrupt. We just hit 100%.
Yeah.
We just did it.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Amazing.
Oh, that's great. You got your dream came true. You manifested.
It's true. It's true.
Wonderful way to end this show. Oh my gosh, that is so exciting. Oh my gosh. Comics are good though. Listen, this is the proof. Comics are good, and so are you. And that's the show. I have to go let my wife in. She's downstairs. I gotta hit stop. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye. Have a good night. I'll talk to you all soon. Danny, Kara, stay on the phone. Kevvo, you too. Bye.
Bye.